Dude, John, thanks for joining me, man. Super good to have you. This man is an absolute animal when it comes to webinars. If you type in webinar consultant, if you type in webinar coach, this guy's like top of the list. So he's got
Oh
that
yeah.
dialed in. He's been doing it for a long time. How long you been doing it?
Over 10 years full time and about 12, I would say in total, part-time couple years and then full-time, no JLB for over a decade now. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Oh, dude, that's amazing, man. Yeah, you've been doing it longer than I've been an adult. I feel like I don't know, not to like prehistoricize you or
I
anything,
know,
but
you're aging me here. Come on. Yeah.
dude, tell us a little bit about like how you got started, man. Like, what's your story? What's your come up?
Yeah, so I was like many people, I wanted to leave a career I no longer loved and was trying to figure out how to replace my income. So very selfish reasons for wanting to escape a career. I went to school for the career. I was a physical therapist in a previous life, got into that, loved parts of it, hated other parts of it, decided I didn't want to work for anybody else or open like a physical practice. So I started like, reaching out and finding ways to make money. I tried stock trading, network marketing. I mean, like literally everything that people do when they're starting to try to figure things out. And took a course like in 2011, maybe 10, 11, on like from T. Harv Eckert back when he was doing seminars a bunch on how to make money on the internet. And so I was like, oh, I was one of those guys that ran to the back of the room, signed up for the course, put together this info product, sold one or two to my family members. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what else to do here. Right. So but it kind of sparked my interest in selling online. And so I started studying marketing, sales, online marketing stuff, taking YouTube. I started a YouTube channel way back in the day on physical therapy and really just fell in love with digital marketing and learning all those kind of things. And so started doing live video kind of presentations back before Facebook Live, before Zoom was around. And I started training a training program on that. I was teaching other people how to do that as well. And then I pivoted more broadly into webinars when I started selling that program, that live stream program to other people. So, and I started collaborating with others. So my whole thing was like, how do you partner with other people? How do you present to their audiences? And how do you profit from that? And that's sort of the model that has helped me have this decade plus, run of good money and not a ton of work too. Very leveraged model, that kind of thing. So yeah, a
Dude,
little bit about me.
so cool, man. What do you think would have happened? Because you mentioned like you kind of got started because you hired someone that kind of showed you the ropes and showed you how to do this. What do you think would happen if you made the opposite decision that you did in that moment?
From not hire somebody.
Mhm.
Well, I hired a lot of people along the way to show me stuff. I hired a gal to help me show me how to use the live videos and all that stuff. Um, you know, I maybe I would have figured it out just trying to piece information together, but I'm always a fan of trying to shortcut the path a bit. And why, if you can, why not hire people to speed that up? So I'm a big fan of hiring people. I've gotten back into YouTube now, and like this is 2025. We're recording this. I literally am in a YouTube program. I hired a YouTube consultant. Like I've already spent like 10 grand on like YouTube coaching, literally in the last couple months. So it's a shortcut, right? You know this, Chris. You're really good at this. Like you're like this ultimate bulldog of like, I'm just gonna go all in and hire a bunch of people to teach me stuff. And to your credit, it shortcuts a lot of the steps, right? I mean, what would take somebody years to figure out on their own, you've been able to do in a lot less time by just hiring people that are doing what you want to do and just modeling them and just taking fast action on it. So it's a shortcut, right? It's a shortcut. You can save money and spend more time, or you can save time and spend a bit of money, right? And those are sort of the trade-offs that each individual has to make given their situation. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because sometimes it feels like on the front end, you're saving
Hmm.
money if you spend your time to do it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like hidden phantom costs that you just don't think about or opportunity costs. So I
Yeah.
always think like the first coach I hired, like let's just say he made me a minimum of 100K a year, like immediately
Yeah.
right off the bat, right?
Right. Right.
So if I tried to figure it out for myself for 10 years, because I did, and if I knew how to do that 10 years ago, and I add that up 100K times 10, like what is that?
Hmm.
That's a
100K
million.
times 10. Yeah.
Yeah,
Million. Yeah.
that's a million, right? So that's $1 million that I didn't make. It
Right.
cost me $1 million to not know how to do that 10 years ago. And I think
Right.
that's something that people don't put into consideration. And I know it's a weird frame of thinking, but it's a total entrepreneur way of thinking, right? Like
Yeah.
opportunity costs. And if you don't think that way, like it's just, I feel like you
I
miss
mean,
out.
I've worked with some very large companies as a webinar consultant, like Shark Tank companies, multi-million dollar, a couple billion dollar companies. And like the entrepreneurs that lead those organizations, one of the characteristics that they have is they compress time. Like they're really good about compressing time. And what I mean by that is they can do what might take somebody like 6 months to do in like 2 weeks, right? And how do they do that? One, they take fast action. Two, they hire help. Three, they're okay being imperfect, and like they're willing to jump off the cliff, pull the parachute on the way down, hopefully break a few dishes or eggs on the way down, and then just figure it out, right? And so
Yeah.
imperfection and fear of criticism hold a lot of people back. The biggest bulldogs in business that I've been around, they compress time like crazy. They just go. They just
Yeah.
do. And they're okay looking stupid or making mistakes or breaking a few things on the way.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, John. I don't know if you hang out with people that are have jobs and normal people, but I've noticed something a lot too when I hung out with people who traded their time for money, essentially working a job. They always valued money over time. So they would
Yep.
spend their time to do things to make a little bit of money. But then I started hanging around like people like you guys, right? And everybody respects time so much. Only like
Mm-hmm.
people who have jobs, they ghost people on their appointments. Like they're the ones that no show on calls. But the people
Right.
that are like high level, they're always like punctual and on time because they respect others' time so much, but they also respect their own. So I think
Right.
that's a huge mindset shift as well that I think a lot of people need to adopt if they want to be successful in being their own boss.
Yeah, as the saying goes, you can always make another dollar, you can't make another minute, right? And that's sort of a philosophy thing in life. And it really comes down to your philosophy. I think most people are smart enough to succeed. I don't think it's an IQ thing. It's
Yeah.
more of a philosophy thing. Like it's how you think, how you show up. Are you going to show up as a professional? Are you going to be on time? Are you going to do what you say you're going to do? Are you going to be workable? So many people just aren't workable, especially if you're going to be an entrepreneur. You need to what? Work with other entrepreneurs. You need to have that network, those connections. And people who are doing things that have high standards, that are succeeding, they respect workability. And if you're not a workable person, meaning you don't do what you say, you don't show up, you don't fulfill, you're going to struggle, right? You can't just be the loafer. You can't be the person that's, oh, I'm close enough. I'm 5 minutes late, whatever. Sorry, I had to do the dishes. Like that kind of stuff doesn't fly, especially if you're going to hire, grow and hold yourself to a bigger standard. So part of it is personal philosophy and mindset. That is very important to do.
Mhm.
And I didn't have this stuff naturally growing up. I've developed it through a lot of reading, through a lot of mentorship, a lot of action, right? A lot of action will shift your identity over time. I always like to say there's mindsets and skill sets, right? Those are the big buckets, and people poop on mindset, they poo poo on it. They say, oh, that's stupid, but it is a big thing, right? You have to be able to show up a certain way to succeed and to gain the trust of others to go faster. But you also need to know the skills too. You can't just sit in a room and manifest things, right? You need to like
Yeah.
actually go out and do things and learn skills. So those are the two big buckets that most people need to pursue.
That's super important, like
Yeah.
what you just brought up right there. What do you think if you were to tell somebody who's like in a situation that has that mindset and skill set issue, where do you think that they should focus first, and where do you think that they should focus most of their energy on developing?
As far as a business, like we're
As
talking like
as
developing a
far
business.
as far as the two buckets of mindset and skill set.
I don't know if I would say, start with your mindset or start with your skill sets. I think it's sort of like you have to spin two plates at the same time. I think the big thing in business to do, your first quest, so to speak, if you're brand new or you have a new idea, is to find product market fit, right? Like that's the first quest you need to go on, right? So I think action helps develop the philosophy and mindset too. I think, yes, read books, yes, get around better people. That is important stuff. Find a better group of people that are supporting your new vision. Read and better yourself, put new ideas in your head. I've been listening to audiobooks in my car for well over a decade now. When I drive places, it feeds my mind. All that is really good. So I think you should be filling your mind with stuff
Mhm.
and filling yourself constantly with sort of this new brainwashing activity, right? You're a different person. If you're not naturally a leader, you're not naturally somebody who is a professional. Like I look at myself as a professional. I show up as a professional. I show up on time, and people respect that. As they say in the West, a gun always recognizes another gun, right? And so it's like you want to become the gun that people recognize, and part of that is your identity and how you show up. So I think pouring stuff into your brain is important,
Mhm.
but just doing that and not pursuing product market fit, I think is also a mistake because in business, what is it? You have to sell, you solve problems for a profit, right? So you need to find a problem that a person has and can you solve that for yourself maybe first? And then once you do that, can you work for other people? Can you create a service? And then from creating a service, can you create coaching, consulting, or products around that? Like that's how you would start creating like an expertise-based business. So I don't really see them as distinct, like do this first and then the other. It's sort of like you're spinning both plates. You're working on your mindset, your identity, but you're also developing skills, right? Like how do you create a product or a service, or how do you have a conversation with somebody? How do you sell, right? How do you generate interested people? And that's where a lot of like your mentorship can help, right, Chris? Because mentors can help with mindset, and just being around people will shift you, right? It will shift you. You've seen that in a big way. You've been in a lot of masterminds. It will
Mhm.
shift you because all of a sudden, the bar is up here, and you're like, oh crap, I don't want to be down here.
Exactly.
That makes a big difference. But then also just learning the skills from other people, learning it and just doing it, and being okay looking stupid, right?
Mhm.
Like you are not going to be great at first in all
Mhm.
likelihood. Now, maybe some of us are more naturally gifted at sales than others, for example,
Mhm.
but you're probably not going to be great at first, and you need to be okay with that and have a growth mindset. I'm not terrible at sales. I just currently struggle with X, right? Like it's not a permanent thing. So many people take one arrow in the back and they fall over dead and give up.
Yeah.
Like literally, you need to develop yourself to the point where you can walk straight ahead with multiple arrows in your back and still keep going. So it's part of it. There's a lot to this. You got to be tough. You got to have the right mindset, and you got to have the right skill sets. And that all can happen through reading, through learning, through getting around other people, and for having the guts to act in spite of fear. Those are all
Yes.
important things.
Yes. I really like that analogy of like keep going with the arrows in your back too. So that's a really
Yeah.
good way to picture it. You also mentioned one of the most important pieces first is product market fit.
Yeah.
For those that don't understand, like what is that exactly and what indicators are you looking for to know that you have a good one?
Yeah, I don't have like if X number of people buy or something like that. It is a bit of a feel, but it should, my loose definition would be you have let's say you have a service. And most people, it's not a bad idea to start with a service, right? Like, here's a problem I can solve for a specific person or group of people, right? People are the ones that give you money, so you need to talk to people, right? And it's not a bad place to start with a service
Mhm.
or some kind of consulting coaching offer that's like one to one, even, right? Just to start with,
Yeah.
to get to start solving that problem. So I would define product market fit as, let's say you talk to 10 people. Are you getting two or three yeses? Are you getting people to say yes to your thing with reasonable ease? And I know that's not a scientific metric or KPI, but
Mhm.
like that, it's sort of a feel like this is selling. I'm selling this. In business, some would call this your effort to reward ratio. Like the effort you're putting into the reward or the output that you're getting is a good deal, and it feels like a good deal, which is probably the best way I can put it. And so
Mhm.
if you're saying not everybody's going to say yes to your stuff, right, Chris? I know you're good at sales. Probably not everybody even says yes to you, although maybe you're a 10 out of 10 now. I don't know. But
We don't know.
but you know what I mean, right? Like it should sell with relative ease to the right person without you having to push a rock up the hill to get a sale or promise the world to them, or you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like it's just you're looking for, can you solve a specific problem for a specific person? And sometimes when you're starting out, you might need to try a few different things, right? Maybe you don't know exactly who you solve that problem for. And it might take you a year or two sometimes to find like, this is the problem I'm best at solving that I like to solve. And this is for that type of person or group of people. That's the service, that's the offer I want to kind of continue to put out there. So some people find it right away. Other people, it can take years sometimes to kind of crack the product market fit where they can sell something with relative ease, not feel like they have to push a rock up the hill to get it done. I guess that would be the best way I could define it. It's really about an effort to reward ratio at some point. I look at things that way. Not am I making money or losing money? It's like for the amount of time and effort put in, what's the ratio of effort to reward? And a lot of times it doesn't make sense, even if it makes money as you get further along, right?
Yeah. What else do you measure as a reward besides, I mean, obviously revenue, money is an easy
Yeah, yeah.
measurement. Is there anything else?
Yeah, good question, man. Like, I mean, for me, I always like to say not all money is created equal. There's good money and there's bad money,
We
right?
had this conversation. Yep.
Bad money is like, man, I got to work my butt off for this. And I have to do things I just don't like doing. And I'm stressed out and I'm miserable. I'm making money. Like for me, I had an agency in 2017. We scaled up to $128,000 in a single month. 4 months in, we were over 100K a month with this agency. We
Yeah.
scaled quick. I hated it. I hated it. You know, my partnership was rough. The delivery wasn't quite polished. We were just getting too many clients for the capacity we had, and it just completely sucked, And so that would be bad money. Like I don't like you can turn bad money into good money through systems and hiring, and hiring doesn't always solve the problem, by the way. It's having better systems. But but that's an example of bad money. Good money is money that you make more effortlessly, doing things you enjoy more. Um, that kind of thing is those are two different things. It's not just about making money, in my view. Like I look at my business as much as a means to a life. Like I'm not as motivated by big numbers, or I'm not looking to build a big team or anything like that. Like give me a one person business that's making $500,000 to $1 million a year with 80% profit margins. I'm pretty good to go. And I think 90% of you out here listening would be the same, right? So um, that's the kind of model that I want to make. So for me, the good money is coming through online course sales, leveraged program sales, those kind of things. Consulting with the right person. I do like consulting and coaching people one to one, but it has to be the right person. And I don't
Yeah.
want a model that pressures me to have to take people on that I wouldn't go have a beer with. That's kind of
Mm.
where I'm at with things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's dude, your answers are spot on. Amazing, man.
For me, they are. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
do you agree with that? Or, I mean, what
Oh,
about you,
completely.
Chris? Like,
I mean, well, we had this conversation a little bit, and I think that makes sense for most people. And I do agree that there's good money and there's bad money. I think
totally.
we all have different perspectives on what that means. I just think some people are just wired differently, right? So we
Totally.
have this conversation about like if you made X amount of money, you were able to live this lifestyle that you wanted, would you be satisfied? And I was kind of like, maybe. But I also, but there was just like this, I had this conversation also yesterday. Is just like, I feel like I'm wired a little bit differently than just being satisfied,
Yeah,
just because I always like constantly want to challenge myself. And I don't know if that's because of past experiences. And
it
it's
probably
just,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
just normally, it's just pent up. So when things are okay, I kind of feel like the world is collapsing a little bit, which is funny because 2 months ago, right before I had like hired salespeople, like we were crushing it, right? And it felt so comfortable
Yep.
that I felt so bored and I didn't know
Ah,
what to do. I was
yeah.
like, let's stir up the pot a little bit. Like,
Right.
let's go buy a house real quick. Let's go leave the country. Let's spend a bunch of money on a mastermind. Let's go to this event. That's literally what just happened. And I feel comfort in chaos sometimes.
You do. Yeah. We talked about
So,
this. Yeah.
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 So I
Yeah.
definitely feel like everyone's goals are a little bit different, and sometimes other people's goals don't make sense for
Hmm.
even like a broader scope of person. It's not that I wouldn't love the comfort and,
Yeah.
the security,
Well,
but
we
I
talked
just want
about
some.
this, right? In life, it's the order of chaos theory, right? Like if you study philosophy, like there's chaos and order, right? And either one of those can be too much, right? Like too much order stagnates and can bore people and not push things forward. Too much chaos can create the wrong thing as well, right? And so
Completely.
for me, I look at things like I can pursue something because of the love of the pursuit, or I could pursue something to prove something. And I think there's a negative way to pursue and grow and a positive way to grow and pursue things, right? And so I think as long as it's for you, and it's just an individual thing, right? It's not like
Mhm.
you're right. People are different. People are motivated differently. And for me, the more I pursue things from a lack perspective or a I'm going to proving perspective. Like underneath proving is I'm not enough, right? That's one of the biggest human subconscious operating systems is I'm not enough, therefore I need to do more to be enough.
Mhm.
And so that can be a bit unhealthy at times if you're sacrificing other areas of your life. So I think it really just depends on you. I mean, Elon Musk's the biggest entrepreneur in the world. I guarantee he sacrifices a ton for his family, his kids,
Mhm.
his happiness. I mean, geez, is it worth it? It might be because the guy advances humanity and his name will forever be in the record books, right? Or in the history books. Is that something that everybody's going to do? Maybe not. So, you're right. It is an individual journey that we get to decide on, and nobody can really tell you exactly what it is for you. It's more of a self-actualization if we go to the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? That hopefully occurs for you and what you want for your life and for yourself, right? So many people, we get comparisonitis or I'm not enough syndrome, or we we pursue things in a scarcity light instead of in a happiness or an expansion kind of light, and that can be, I think, harmful for people as well.
Yeah.
So most people just throw out numbers like I want to make $10 million or 100 million, 100,000 a month, and they've never really taken the time to like really define what their dream life looks like because everything has trade-offs.
Mhm.
Everything will have trade-offs. Even we're in this awesome leveraged business that we're
Mhm.
in, right? We can use software, AI, like other helpers, virtual assistants. Like we have leverage, you and I, in the current modern economy, right? The
Mhm.
creator economy that we live in, which is awesome, right? But at some point, you will, depending on your model, depending on a lot of things, there will usually need to be some sort of trade-offs. And for me, I'm unwilling to trade off my happiness and my family time, my relationship with my son for money. I refuse.
Mhm.
So I'm okay making more money, but it has to be good money. It has to be in a way that I enjoy doing, that fills me up, not doing things I don't like. Because then I won't be, it'll drain me and I'll show up worse in the afternoons for my son and
Yeah.
my wife and my friends and myself. And I refuse that. So it's a decision that we can all make.
I really like that perspective, and I feel like I need more clear defining lines between that because sometimes I bleed me working into benefiting my family. But
Yeah.
sometimes they're
Yeah.
like, well, but we don't need to make more
Yeah.
money. That's not what I care
Exactly.
about. And in
Yeah.
my mind, I feel like that's what needs to be done. Whereas they're just like, we just want your time and you to be present.
And it might be that you're coming from, I know you had a challenging youth, right? You maybe are coming from some of that like lack perspective a little bit because you're doing great, dude. Like you're like a one percenter, dude. Like in this industry, you're kicking ass, but it's like it's never enough. And I'm not saying don't grow. Like if you feel aligned with growth and it fuels you, then great. I think just make sure that fuel is coming from a positive light and not a dark light, right? It's what it feels like. Because at least that's my view. Because your kids and your family, like I don't know if your wife's in your industry, is she in the industry or she's not. She's like, what the hell do you do, Chris? Is that kind of what she's?
She works for my company and like helps me.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so she's not as my wife is a school teacher and
Mhm.
is not in the industry and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, John, I support you. You're great. I don't know what you do really, but
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so they don't care. She's not money driven, and neither is my son. Like little kids don't really understand money,
Mhm.
right? And as an adult, we're trying to provide for them. Like, hey, I'm gonna provide for you guys, and I'm gonna make it big so that you have it easier, which is also a topic you could talk about for your kid too. You got to be careful with that.
Mhm.
But they want your time and they want your best energy more than they want money because they don't understand that. And my father had an insurance business, pretty sizable business. He was an entrepreneur. Was stressed to the gills, was miserable, like was not happy. His marriage was falling apart. I mean, I had kind of a rocky upbringing as well. He had
Mhm.
money and resources, but not much else. And his mind was like, I'm just going to make money. I'm going to support the family. I'm going to do this. And when I was a kid, I remember I didn't know what the hell. You don't really even understand the concept of money when you're a kid, right? You know what it is, but it's like you have no desire to. Usually, kids don't have a big desire to build
Yeah.
wealth, right?
It's
It's
just
usually
paper
developed as
with
you get
like
older.
It's
Yeah.
paper with dead guys'
But
faces
what
on
they always will remember is you and your energy and your time with them, right? And so I think for me, I'm very careful of that. Like I'm not willing to do certain things because I'm unwilling to sacrifice those parts of my life.
it. That that's it's
You get what you tolerate. You get what you tolerate in life. And I don't tolerate growth at all costs for me. I know
it's
I'm leaving
definitely
money on the table. I know it.
right.
I know
It's
I am.
enlightening though, like knowing where you came from and like how your dad was. Because do you think that's shaped your perspective on what you have now?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I literally I had zero growth mindset growing up. If I didn't win, I didn't want to play. Like I had the wrong philosophy as a young person. And I've
Mhm.
had to build a new John 2.0, basically, right? To like get here. And I'm still working on myself. I don't have it all figured out. There's still shifts I'm making in my business and in my life and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I had this proving mentality. I had this like I'm going to show everybody that I'm not, this I'm not enough syndrome. I had that, for
Mhm.
sure. And we often develop that as from our youth, right? From a parent or a bad situation where we weren't approved of, or we end up if we have a tough father, like my father was kind of tough on me, like you end up trying to seek their approval, and then you become a people pleaser or a people seeker. You need external validation to be okay, and that's dangerous, right?
Mm.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I had too much of that as a youth, and that hurt me because I didn't have enough of an internal focus. I was like reaching external for things, and when you're always reaching for externals and never really getting comfortable with the internals, you'll be pulled in all kinds of directions and end up places sometimes you don't want to go. So I've had to develop that through a lot of
Yeah.
reading, a lot of mentors, a lot of life kind of experiences and coaching and psychology. And I've been a student of all those things for a while, and it's influenced me. I had a business mentor that was a monk one time.
Really?
Like I've hired all kinds of, and I loved his different perspectives. And I
Yeah.
don't agree with everything that he said,
Mhm.
but it challenged my thinking, right? If we just always think the same, we always are in this like kind of vacuum, or what is it called? What is an echo chamber, right? People call it, where you're just hearing the
Yeah.
same things. This guy was like, well, what's the least amount I can make in my business to fulfill my best life? And he's like, and no more. And I'm like, ooh.
Mm.
I'm like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea. It's like, well, have you sat down and actually, worked on defining what that looks like for you, John? I'm like, no, I just want to make more money because I'm like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and so those are sort of things that I've acquired from other people that I feel are maybe a little wiser than me. And everybody can rock on however you want, right? If you want to build a mega business, if you're listening to this, go for it. Just know that there will be trade-offs. There will
Yeah.
be trade-offs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. Oh man. Okay. So your expertise is webinars, man. How
There's a
did you
big pivot,
land?
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like let's lighten it up a little bit. But like,
All right. Sorry, guys. I'm going too deep here.
no,
All right.
this is awesome. This is awesome. But I just want to
Yeah.
like talk about like your expertise a little bit with like the webinars. Is what would you? Because I think a lot of people are kind of like in the internet space are like, oh, we're always looking for like a new thing, whether it be
Yeah.
like high
Yeah.
ticket, low ticket, challenges, events, not events, automated. You know what I mean? So, what do you think webinar stands today in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, none of that you just mentioned is really new. I mean, that stuff's been around. High ticket stuff maybe is a little newer, but yeah, webinars, challenges, these things have been around a long time, right? People just either discover them recently or they're tweaking them a little bit. Webinars themselves are still a great conversion tool, right? I mean, I've yet to find something when they're done right that converts better in a one-to-many fashion. If you're a good presenter and you're good at building trust in a one-to-many fashion with a virtual live experience, you will absolutely crush it, right? I mean, there just isn't, besides meeting in person and being good at that,
Mhm.
webinars are really like live virtual presentations are like the next best thing, right? Because it's just you can build trust, you can give value first before making an offer. And you can command people's attention. According to the data, people are still willing to give 50 minutes of live attention on a webinar. Now, if you frame it differently, they'll give you more, like a workshop or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's the power of it. Like gathering up a group of people, giving value, building trust, and then making an offer. That will always be the case. The tools and software will shift, I'm sure, in the coming years. But the ability to do that and connect that and become a good speaker and presenter will not go away in the near future, in my view.
Mm. Yeah.
Mhm.
I've noticed that all these different names, master classes, webinar, there's just like minor tweaks. It's like duration of how long it is.
Mhm.
The information's still kind of framed this or structured the same way, right? Is there like a preference for you? I mean, like, are you webinar biased or like, what do you think is the best and how do you even define like the differences between all?
Yeah, so webinar is classic sales webinar is usually around an hour, maybe 90 minutes, right? You make an offer at the end, either to buy a course or program or to book a call, right? So those are kind of the classic webinars. Master classes are usually a little longer, could be 2 to 3 hours, that kind of thing. Maybe a little more interactive, although your webinar should also be interactive as
Yeah.
well. Most people try to do too much in a 1 hour webinar, and that hurts them.
What do you mean by too
Guilty
much?
of, well,
Like,
they
what
try
do
to
they do?
overteach. Like the number one mistake people make is they overteach too many different concepts. Like your webinar should be built on one core belief, one core opportunity. Like, what is the opportunity that you are trying to convince them to discover and to buy into? Like, for example, I did a webinar with a guy a couple weeks ago on how to borrow an audience instead of building one. That is the big idea of that webinar. So we didn't spend time teaching them a gazillion different things. We focused on poking at that opportunity or pointing to that opportunity in a bunch of different mediums. The old
Mhm.
way, new way. We shared case studies. We shared examples. We talked about the 5 keys to success doing that thing, right? Like so, but the core thing was that one thing. And so
Mhm.
most people try to overteach and they get stuck. And the same applies for a master class too. I mean, you have a little more time, let's say, but it should be kept around ideally one opportunity, like one big thing that you're getting them to buy into. So a
Mhm.
masterclass might be a little more interactive, a little longer, or a workshop is another thing people are doing. Depending on that, that's usually a little longer, a little more interactive. For me, I've always converted best from a webinar because I'm just good at it. When I get into a workshop setting, sometimes I overteach because I love to
Uh,
teach. I love
yeah.
to teach. I actually prefer teaching to selling. I'm just like, hey, let me just show you a bunch of stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
And I have to hold back on that. And sometimes when I get out of the whole like webinar framework, I can overteach, and people either leave with more questions than they came with, or they feel satiated with enough, and they just kind of leave, right, without taking the next step. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of mistakes and nuances to these things.
I've
I
heard that
still feel
so
like
many
webinars do
times.
best. Yeah.
I've heard that so many times too. Is like one of the biggest killer of sales is like over teaching. So when
Yeah.
you were in that phase, because you naturally want to overteach, like you
I
mentioned.
naturally do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what were some things that you had to do to overcome that, hold back, and like pivot to where it was actually converting?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like learning how to do it, like finding somebody like myself who's done it and then following a framework and just being willing to buy into it because there's a fear around it, right? A lot of people overteach out of fear, right? They
Mm,
overteach because they want to be valuable. Like they want to not be one of those marketers that's all sizzle and no steak, right? When in
mhm,
reality, you need to be sizzle and steak, but the steak needs to be more concise and built around a new opportunity. You will delight and excite people and get them to buy from you if you do it right. If you hit the opportunity in a way, if you frame the opportunity, you show them the opportunity, you offer the opportunity in a way that exposes them, that shifts them, that shifts their thinking, their thoughts of what were possible for them. They now see a new path that was not visible to them before. It's like you walk into a dark room and you walk up next to them and you pull a light switch and you turn on a light for them. Like that's what you want your webinar to do. And if you
mm,
do that, people will love you. Like, this is amazing. You'll hear it in the comments, like, this is great. This is amazing. And those people will buy from you. So that's the trick is like, you got to do both. You got to delight, excite, but you got to do it in a way where you walk into a dark room, pull the light on. Wow, I never thought about this thing that you're showing me in that light. I think I can do this. And there's a whole bunch of nuances around objections and shifts and all that kind of stuff. But the core webinar or the core presentation needs to be built around ideally one big opportunity that you're going to show them that they weren't doing before, a better way, an old way versus the new way, right? Like kind of like it has to be framed properly. And you need to
That's
build trust. You got to share a story. You want to be human as well. There's a lot of nuance to this. Most people are nervous. They read a script. I mean, I just reviewed a client's script the other day. It was horrible. Like, God bless you if you're listening. But they were just reading a script in a monotone language, no vocal variety, no nothing. And I'm just like, oh my God, like that script was great too. The script was good, but the presenter just, wasn't so good. So
so that's a
there's a lot
big
of
thing.
skills.
That's a
It
big
is.
thing too, right? Sometimes
It
it's
is.
not like the words that you say, but it's like
Yeah.
how you say it. How
Yeah.
can somebody who is not good at presenting focus on that while also needing to nail the words? Like, what would you say for them to
Yeah.
focus?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just training to, if you're going to do speaking for a living, like webinars or in-person talks, it would behoove you to learn and practice and get better. There are plenty of trainings on this. There's plenty of videos on YouTube. If you just like watch the top 10 YouTube videos and then just practice, you're probably going to get better than 90% of the people out there. You know how much practice most people have done at being a better speaker? Zero,
Yeah.
right? Zero, not a damn thing. I was in Toastmasters for a couple of years. I mean, not that it's the greatest selling program, but it gets you comfortable speaking because I wasn't naturally a comfortable speaker in front of
Mhm.
people,
Mhm.
like not naturally. And so what do you do to get better and overcome things? You practice. And that's the key word. If you really want to succeed in business, you have to practice. You have to be a practitioner of the craft, of the skills. And most people practice this much and then they wing it or they read a script and they, oh, this doesn't work, or I'm not very good, or they label themselves. And so, look, some people are naturally good at that, but I think anybody can improve
Right.
significantly in their ability to speak. So, part of it is vocal variety, slowing down to make key points, and also speeding up to like hit certain emotions when you're delivering. Cadence is super important. Most people speak too slowly on a webinar and without enough enthusiasm. Like you want to lift your voice a half notch when you're speaking on video because otherwise you come across a little flat, right? So
Mm.
there's some nuances that I work with people on to become a better presenter, to use their voice, use their cadence, create the right emotion that they're trying to create because you want to create a certain emotion at certain points in your webinar. In addition to having a sales narrative that converts, right? Those are the
Mhm.
key elements: presenter, message, offer. If you get those things right, you're going to do much better. And it takes practice. Like I'm not, there's no hack. I mean, you can use AI to write the scripts or things like that, but you still need to be able to deliver a good presentation. If you learn that skill, you'll crush it. Like you'll always make money.
I'm assuming most people come to you because they're like, I don't know what to say. I don't have the system built
Yeah.
out. Do you
Yeah.
find yourself like, is that normally their problem, or are you normally like having to do that, but also like mainly fix on their presentation skills?
I mean, some people are already good. It depends. I certainly evaluate that. Like I have what's called a genius model graphic. So genius model is a Venn diagram that outlines the core elements of your program. If you're not using visuals to sell in your Zoom sessions, you should. I don't know if you're doing that, Chris, but you should. If you're not, you'll close more deals.
Mhm.
And so mine is presenter, offer, message, right? So I look at all, if I'm optimizing, if someone comes to me and they're like, John, I have a webinar and I want it to be better, I go, great. I find out where they are, I look at their numbers, then I say, well, would it be helpful to see how I work with my clients? I pull up a visual and it's that Venn diagram kind of perspective. And I talk about the different components that I evaluate in their presentation. And it's really those three. Do you have a good offer and are you positioning and delivering your offer well? Do you have a marketing message that gets your ideal buyer to know, understand, and believe what they need to believe about themselves, the opportunity, and about you? And then are you delivering it well? If it's a live webinar, even a recording, right? Like it needs to be delivered. Like I could give the same script to two different people, they'd get two different results completely. And that's
Mhm.
tough. It's tough, but you need to practice, you need to improve, but it's better to, done is better than perfect, right? As well. So like there's starting, which if you're starting, just put together a basic offer, basic presentation. Don't over worry about your ability. Practice a little bit and then just go and use like Zoom meeting like we're on right now and just start presenting to people because you'll get feedback right away. The faster you can go from 0 to 1, the better, right? So
Yeah.
and then from there you get better. But most people just quit or they, oh, this is not for me, or there's too many one arrow in the back and they're done kind of thing.
Yeah.
Too much.
I
Yeah.
think I don't know if it's the same with like your clients. I think one of the biggest struggles that a lot of people have is just garnering more attention. So
Yep.
marketing. I know
Yep.
you
Yep.
do things a little bit differently. Kind of explain the whole JV thing. Like how has that worked for you and how did you kind of land on that was the way that you wanted to do things?
So I kind of stumbled into it, you know. It wasn't like I was like brilliant or anything at the time. Just sort of how I got started, right? So about 2013, I think, I did my first JV webinar with a guy. I had a list of 200 people. He had a list of over 5,000. Why would he partner with me? Because he liked me, liked my product. I gave him a cut of the commissions, and I ended up getting my first 11 clients from that first presentation. Then he introduced me to another person and another person, and another person, right? And I just sort of kept growing my list, adding about 300 to 500 subscribers to my list every time I do a webinar. And that's just kind of where I started and what I started doing. And the cool thing about that is you can you can get some one-to-many leverage without having to risk money on ads. I was not a professional media buyer or anything like that at the time. A lot of people, if they have new offers, new this and that, running a bunch of ads, you can try it, but you're probably going to light some money on fire. And if you can crack the code on it, great. But in a lot of markets, it's pretty. It could be pretty challenging for people. So the partnership piece is a way to get that one-to-many leverage and get some scale without having to pay an ad network to do it, you know? And so that's just what I went into. I started doing JV webinars. Then I started doing virtual summits. So I started doing an annual online conference once a year. And
Mhm.
that really took it up another level. So I would invite like 25 to 30 influencers to an online
Mhm.
conference and I would interview them. I would host it. They would promote it to their databases in many cases. And I would add like 3 to 5 thousand subscribers every time I ran that to my
Wow.
list, you know. And so it's a lot of work. It took about 3 months or so to put together, 3 to 4 months, usually your first time to do, but it put me on the map, you know? So and it helped build a list, build a name for myself and all those kind of things. And there's pros and cons to the partnership model, like the JV model, right? There is. I mean, it's not as fast as flipping on an ad switch. I know you run a lot of ads, Chris. Obviously, you can flip that on and off, test new creative, get some traffic. It happens fast, right? And if you can dial it in like you have, you can have good results like you've had too. So I'm not saying that my model is the right model for everyone. I'm just saying that that's the model that I stumbled into and that I still do today. I mean, I have a pretty powerful network of people. I generate about 8,000 leads a year from my partnerships for my business. Um, I pay zero in ad costs for any of that. I pay some affiliate commissions in some cases, so there is some cost on the back end.
Mhm.
But that has allowed me to have a very systemized business. I have an assistant who manages the partnerships for me, gets people everything, um, and allows me to work 20, 25 hours a week and make very good money, you know, doing that. So that's just kind of how I stumbled into it. And so I think it's a good model for a lot of people to do.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of time to put together because you need relationships and you
Yeah.
need to find those people. But look, I could lose everything today and tap those relationships and have a multiple six-figure business running the next year. It's just I have the skills, I have the connections. No ad network is going to disrupt me. No ad costs are going to budget me out. It will work 10 years from now like it works today.
Yeah.
So that's a
That,
benefit too.
that's really good, man. And especially it's just goes to show again like how important relationships are. And I think
Yep.
sometimes people are afraid to like go out, build those relationships, or even put themselves in the room where they have those opportunities. And I
Yeah.
spent a lot of money in this last couple of weeks just being in the rooms with the right people. And it's just the little nuggets that you take away, right? So just the
Totally.
fact I was in a room where like people were like had like 25K, 30K, 50K, 100K offers. And I was like, I do not want to be like the cheapest one in the room. So just that exposure alone has just been like I'm finding ways
Mm,
now to just like increase my prices, and that alone is going to change my business. Because if I just
mm.
double my price because everyone around me is doing it, then I immediately am like kind of doubling my business, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like underlying opportunities that you'll never think would come to putting yourself in a room around other people. Obviously, you know relationships and you know how beneficial it is. What are some big benefits that you've gotten out of just being in the room or being around the right people?
Yeah. I mean, benefits. I mean, I've been in masterminds and things like that. I'm in coaching program right now for YouTube because that's kind of a big focus for me right now.
Mhm.
I mean, the benefits are many, right? I mean, obviously everything from learning skills or nuances to things, how to say things, how to price things, how to offer things. So there's a learning component to being around people that are smarter than you at whatever you're doing, right? Like that kind of thing. There's the relationship, as you mentioned. A lot of those people become colleagues, or, in my case, many of them become promotional partners. Not all of them, but many of them will actually promote my business as well. I mean, that happens quite a bit. I mean, I've had heads of masterminds promote me, and or invite me to co-create or to give a talk to their audience, or like I make money from that as well. It's pretty hard not to make an ROI if you are diligent in there, right? Because like some of them become clients. A lot of them become clients of mine because I have a very niche skill that a lot of them want to learn, and I do it better than most of them, and I've made more money with webinars than most of them. And it's like I can just, they're like they all want to do it, so it's like, hey, John, can I hire you to help me either improve or so it's pretty hard not to make at least you should make more money than you invest if you do it right.
Mhm.
But also the skills and the knowledge and the connections. And as you said, just the mindset, right? Of like, you're elevating your mindset a bit, being around other people. And so there's an identity shift there a bit, right? And it's like, and that's important, right? People honestly need encouragement more than they need knowledge sometimes, right? That is such a
Agreed.
big factor if you're a coach out there. People need encouragement. They need to see themselves doing it. They need to be told that they're amazing, that they can do it, right? Because oftentimes it's just a matter of permission to hit a switch, right? And it's like, ooh, okay, I can go to that next level. I can do
Mhm.
it, right? It's weird, isn't it? It's almost like a subconscious, like we run up against a ceiling of like your like, let's say your money, you're charging a certain price. You sort of run up against a ceiling of like a pricing thermometer almost, right, in your
Mhm.
life. It's like, and then it's like, oh, I see these people up here. Oh, okay, now I can go up there, right? And it's like, it's interesting, the psychology behind that.
It really is. I mean, I had one of those moments that you just talked about recently where I was asking my mentor, I help musicians now. I wanted to broaden out and help creatives as a whole. That way I had enough experience to broaden out and help experts as a whole. I was like, should I take those baby steps outward or should I just take the hard turn and just go exactly where I want to go? She's like, just do exactly what you want to do. Like, take that hard turn. You don't really need to pivot out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, just because she said that,
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So it's
Yeah,
weird how sometimes, like, psychologically, we just need the permission from the right person. It's
yep,
not like I couldn't like learn that from or come to the conclusion myself, but it was just
yeah.
the fact that I was there. I looked up to this person said it to me. This was specific advice for me where I was just like, it clicked and I was like, let's go.
And that's why it's important to get around people you respect. I mean, your uncle could have told you the same thing and you would have been like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, but
Exactly.
like same thing, same message. So, but it hits differently from somebody you respect or somebody who's mentoring you or you look up to, right? And so
Mhm.
that's a huge thing. So
Right.
it's all out
Completely.
there. I mean, it's never been easier and it's never been harder, right? It's like the technology's easier, the tools are easier, the access to mentorship is easier. I mean, literally, you can find anything on YouTube, at least at the free level. Now, you should still get it around other people because that does affect you, right? Like
Mhm.
being in the room, being around other people, elevating your network. But it's all available, man. I mean, the tools are getting easier. It's really just, taking action and doing it and being willing to pivot and figure it out. And if you do
Mhm.
that, it's pretty hard to fail. Like it's pretty hard to fail if you just never quit.
It's
It's pretty
true.
hard to fail.
It's true. And what you said about it's not just information, but it's also encouragement is like a big thing.
That's a big one in coaching. Yeah.
All the information is out there on the internet.
Yep.
Like if I never hired somebody to show me what to do and say, "Hey, do this thing," and then pay me a lot of money, I don't think I would have done it. I think I
Yeah.
would have looked at the same YouTube videos. I could have been told the
Yep.
same information verbatim, and I would have been like,
Hmm.
there's
Yep.
no reason for me to drop what I'm doing right now and actually do the hard work.
And knowledge is different than experience, right? Those are not the same things. Most people pursue knowledge and not experience enough, right? So like knowledge is learning something and understanding it. Experience is what you gather from doing it. And I had a gal the other day. I did a workshop in January on joint ventures, and it was $100 workshop, right? So it was a low ticket workshop to my list and audience, and she messaged me before, like, because I offer a refund or whatever. Nobody ever takes it, but she wanted one, I guess. And she's like, John, I like your stuff, but I want a refund. And if she's listening to this, hey, sorry, but not gonna call you out by name,
Yeah.
but she's like, I would like a refund for that, and she's like, it's too basic for me. And I'm
Mm,
just like, okay, like how many of you ventures have you done? And she's like, well, I haven't done any yet, but I'm looking for more like advanced stuff. And so it's like, okay, well, this is the exact process I've used to generate over 30,000 email subscribers in my career doing this. Like, and it's the exact process that I use. And so this is
mhm.
an example of somebody who's pursuing knowledge and not experience.
I love
And
it.
that's such a trap because you're not like knowledge is just potential power. It's not power. So you got at some point, what I would recommend if you're listening to this and you're new, gain a base level of the basics, like a basic understanding, and then start applying it so you can start gathering experience. You don't need the special hack or the secret sauce when you've done zero with it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man, I love this. This hits so hard. And I think a lot of people, especially beginners, feel like they already know the thing, but even if they've never done it, so then they start to
Yeah.
look at this is foundational stuff. I've already heard this before. That doesn't mean that you've done it, right? And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, after I hired my first coach, I hired a coach every 3 months to teach me the same thing, like
Mm.
the
Hmm.
same thing. And I
Hmm.
just kept doing it. I learned it from so many different perspectives that I have no leaky holes, or at least I would like to believe that I have no leaky holes in the foundation.
Yeah.
So I've now hired a lot of man coaches. So there's a very masculine angle to it. And I noticed like when I coach females or people with like more feminine energy, that masculinity is a little bit like off-putting. And so
Mm.
like I've started hiring coaches that are females or have different energy so that
Hmm.
I can adapt to that as well. And I think a
Mm.
lot of people don't think that way. They just
Are
think I've
most
heard this once before, I'm good.
are most of your clients men or women?
I'm getting a good mixture now. It was men at first,
Pretty
and like
close.
a lot of women are coming in. Yeah.
Mm. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's something I was like, there's a hole here somewhere that I need to
Mm.
learn how to be more empathetic, learn how to, you know what I mean, encourage people when they're not driven that way, when they're not just like wanting to get yelled at all the time.
Yeah, right.
So that's
Exactly.
why I
Yeah.
started seeking out other mentors to show me the same thing but from a different perspective. So I think that's a huge rookie mistake is just like feeling like you already know everything.
Yeah.
Because there's always
Well,
things that you know, and then there's
is
like more
this,
things that you don't know, and then there's even more things that you don't even know that you don't know.
yeah, and our
So
egos tend to block our progress, right? Like oh, I know that. I know. And again, knowing and not doing is to not know, right? This is the old proverb. I think that's an old proverb, right? It's like to know and not do is to not know, right? And it's like it's just so many get trapped in the knowledge, and it's safer. And I like learning too. Don't get me wrong. I like to learn, but I don't. I call when in my during my work day, and I work from about 9 o'clock to 1:30 or 2 every day,
mm,
Monday through Friday. I got to cut out a little earlier on Friday to get my son. He's got early release, but it's really like I call it. There's game time and then there's extra time. So like during game time, during those hours, I'm focused on action-oriented tasks. I'm focused on producing. I'm not focused on consuming. So I don't read books. I don't watch unless it's something I'm really need to look up and like really that I'm doing. I'll like look up a video or something maybe, but like I'm not reading. I'm not consuming during game time. I'm producing. And then in my
mhm,
extra time, it might be driving in my car. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. That's how I get to consume, more books is otherwise I just wouldn't read them. I wouldn't sit down and read them. Um, that's extra time. So like there's acquiring knowledge in many cases is like that's overtime. That's the extra time. Game time is like you're producing, you're working towards your business goals or whatever you're focused on. And you're only learning if you need to solve a quick problem on the spot or something like that, right? I think so many people
mm,
mistake learning for doing or again, knowledge for experience. And that's such a a rookie trap or a distinction that so many people fall into.
Mm,
You don't need the base, you don't need advanced when you're just starting. You need the basics with action, and that's
mhm,
how you'll start getting experience, which will give you wisdom. And wisdom is really valuable to the marketplace because everybody can recite the same old crap that you can get on ChatGPT into the
mhm.
marketplace. But to have true wisdom that you can share based on experience is hard for AI to replicate. They don't have, it doesn't have your stories, it doesn't have your nuance to the same level that you do. And that's where the distinction will come, especially if you're a content creator. It's really like how I content, not how you should do content. Like how I did X is better than
Mhm.
how you should do. Like
Completely.
this is like my experience, you know? So it's like you can't Google that.
Dude, that's super sauce that you just dropped. Actually, that really helped me out because I tend to blend consumption and production in the
Hmm.
same time space, and I know that's really distracting for me because I'm like, oh,
Oh,
I need to learn, right? So like I almost think of it as like I need to do this because it's a thing that I need to learn how to do, but sometimes it like takes me off track of doing the thing that I need to do. So that's really good, man. So you
do
time
you
block
do you
production
do you
out.
theme your days? Do you theme your days, or is every day sort of like a mix? Like, do you have
Every day is a
call
mix.
days? Do you have call days like for leads? Do you have like creator days? Like Friday is my creation day. I block it out. There's no calls on that day because
Yeah.
otherwise, to create YouTube content, like I've been doing YouTube, I need to be in the right energy flow, right? Like I need to feel like if I'm having to jump from that to a call to a client to writing something to the end, I'm gonna not be as good, you know? So like I have like Fridays are creator days, Tuesdays and Thursdays are calls. If I
Mm.
have calls, I don't have a ton of calls. I don't have a call heavy business.
Mm.
Um, and then yeah, and then there's a few other days that are kind of more like project focused stuff. Like I'm doing a big promotion in April, so I have to prepare content and things sometimes
Yeah.
for like I have a copywriter I'm working with, a designer, so I'm kind of working on projects, you know, building a new program or a new masterclass on Monday and Wednesdays. Friday's creator day. I punch out at about 1 o'clock on that day. So I record from about 9 to 1, upload them for my VA, and then I'm off to get my son for the weekend. And then, yeah, the Tuesday, Thursdays are potential call days for like my calendar and stuff like that, for leads or consulting inquiries, or client calls, you
Yeah.
know, those kind of things. Wednesdays, you know, I'm doing this with you today, so I do make some exceptions, but it's yeah, that's kind of what I
Something
do.
I really respect about what you do, John, is like you're really like sticking to your principles. I think I set these barriers for myself, and then over time I get lost in them.
Hmm.
Because I
Mhm.
do have days where I batch content. I do have days where like I'll do certain things, but I feel like the more and more I put on my plate, it's started to dilute and like started to
Hmm.
just intertwine. And like that's, I feel like that's when I'm least productive. So I think this
Yeah,
is something I'm constantly having to readjust is
yeah.
putting myself into more structure versus just putting everything in front of me and then trying to figure it all out.
And you have more, I think, more of an active call business. You have a call heavy, more of a call heavy business than I do, but you also have a helper now too, I think you said. Um, so I think you by necessity maybe need to be more flexible on your calendar, right? Because I mean, obviously, from an application funnel perspective, the more availability on the calendar, generally, the higher the landing of the appointment from the ad or the lead, right? So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I don't know. It's just something to think about, like especially for content creation. Like I don't want to be working on writing some copy for a promotion and then having to record YouTube videos like that. But to me, like that stuff drains me, and I want my best energy to show up if I'm going to create content. So
Yeah,
I just, you know, I try to be efficient with the time I have, you know, and again, I knock out by 2 o'clock at the latest each day. That's it. Like, and
that's
it's
amazing.
because I have a family, I have a kid, you know, and I refuse to be, and I'll look at my computer sometimes, or occasionally I'll work on stuff. I'm not saying I never don't, but it's pretty much like I'm unwilling to sacrifice that for money or work. I mean, I totally leave money on the table. I totally do. I
Yeah.
100% do.
But that's the thing too,
But
man. Like it's just like you stick to your guns when it comes to your principles like that. And I think that's something I need to do as well. Because sometimes I'm very with my kid, like I'm distracted and stuff like that. So that's something I'm working on as well. I really like that you're like
and I'm not
dipping
perfect
into
either, but you know, it's like I'm not trying to say I am, but it's I my intention is that matters a lot. Like when I was a physical therapist, I worked with people in their 80s and 90s, and I used to ask them all the time, what do you remember most about your life? And none of them said, "Well, I wish I would have worked more hours," or "I wish I had, got a
Mhm.
promotion." They all talked about the people in their lives and the places they went. That was it. Like almost all of them, all of
Wow.
these old people. And I talked to dozens or, I had hundreds of patients, but I probably asked at least, several dozen of them, like, what do you remember about your life? And they all said almost the same thing. I don't think there might have been one guy who was an engineer at IBM that said something around money, but but not many, right?
Yeah.
None of them matters. None of them cared that much about it. So it
Yeah.
was like, that's not what they remember. And your kids won't really remember that either. And your kids need to make their own damn money anyway, right? It's like, don't rob them of the chance to struggle for it a little bit and to
Yeah.
create themselves, It's just, um, I don't know. I hear what you're saying. Like, I also want to provide for my family and my kids. I think it is important as a man. I feel like it's part of my duty. I do. And so, but at a certain point, it's like, okay, like I'm not opposed to making more money, don't get me wrong, but I'm going to do it in a way that's leveraged. Like that's why I'm going all in on organic social media. Like I want to build a sizable organic audience that I can sell courses and programs to in a very leveraged way,
Yeah.
right? Like I don't want to have to grind through coaching or consulting a bunch of individuals as much. Like I want to create the one to many, even further the one to many model. And so that's the kind of model I want. So it's going to take a little bit of work to continue to kind of push in that direction, but
Dude, take me through that. It's 2025. You're now going all in on content. What made you make that decision?
I think it's getting part of it's getting clear on like what's your dream model is. I was just coaching a client this morning actually on this. Like a good question to ask is like if you could if you knew it wouldn't fail, what would be your dream business model? Like if you knew it was going to succeed, what would it
Hmm.
be? And so part of that is an awareness of like how you like to deliver. Like for me, I don't necessarily love managing a big group coaching program. I don't
Hmm.
love having to handle people's stuff for long periods of time. I'm more of a fast start personality. I tend to like to sell courses, short cohort engagements, short group coaching programs built around a specific topic, and
Hmm.
then move on from that basically. Um, I don't, so part of it is defining how you want to deliver your services and what you're okay with. Like I mentioned, I had that agency. That sucked, even though I made a bunch of money like quickly. And I don't want that sort of model. I don't want a bunch of agency clients. I don't want a big team. I don't want to manage, hire, and fire people all the time. For me, I want a one person solopreneur business with a handful of outsourced helpers that has, 80, 90% profit margins where I can make, $1 million+ a year. And that's my model. That's what I want. And so in order to do that, what do I need to do? I need to be able to generate enough organic traffic to do that. And by the way, I enjoy creating content, so I'm enjoying going back to that now.
Hmm.
Um, I still do the partnership piece because I have that fairly systemized. But I've enjoying creating content. I enjoy creating videos and sharing my expertise. So that's going to be what grows the traffic or the trust funnel, the trust building mechanism on the front end, right? That's how people are going to find me, and I'm going to build trust with them. From there, they're going to go and buy an online program of mine. It could be a course that I sell for $200 to $500, could be $1,000, and they just literally buy it and go through it themselves. Like that would
Hmm.
be one of my primary offers. And I know several people online that are doing that and making $2 to $5 million doing that. So I know that model still works. You just need to
Hmm.
build a big organic audience to do that. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
paid ads don't work as well when your price points are $200 to $500, right? So it's like, there's nuance to understanding the chain of events here, right? So yeah, that's it. So I'm going to build an organic audience. I'm going to, have them buy courses and programs a couple times a year. They'll get on my email list, of course. I keep growing my email list. Email is still the foundation for everybody out there. And then I'm going to do a few e-classes or cohorts throughout the year to bring in even more money to coach some people over like a 4 to 6 week period. And that'll probably be my model. And then what I'll do is I do like consulting, coaching a very small group of people one on one. I actually
Yeah.
enjoy coaching people one on one. I like to really get to know them because coaching is hard to scale. Good coaching is hard to scale. Because what is good coaching? Really listening and understanding people deeply and helping to unlock them, helping them to see a bigger potential That's hard to do. It's a
Hmm.
tough skill to learn, and it's certainly hard to do in a large group, right? So it's that's my model. And so course sales, cohorts, some consulting. Give me $1 million a year with 90% profit margins,
Yeah.
working 20, 25 hours a week. I'm
I
good.
love it, man. Love it. So
Yep.
you reverse engineer everything. You're like, what's the lifestyle, the outcome I want? And then
100%.
you just work
Yeah.
backwards from it.
I'm
But
an
you have
engineer
like,
mindset. This is what I do with
yeah,
my clients. We look at how are you getting discovered? How are you building trust? How are you converting? How are you delivering? And what is the ideal model for you in your situation, right? Because it's
yeah,
different for everybody. People are wired differently.
yeah,
And it's not the same. All money is not the same as we talked about earlier. So,
yeah. And we're kind of like in the same space, but we do things differently too, which is really cool to hear another perspective, man. And like seeing what you
yep.
do and how you operate. Super cool, man. Dude,
Cool.
this has been an awesome conversation, man. Thank you for jumping
Thank
on and
you.
sharing all your wisdom, man. This is so great. Obviously, where can people find you besides like typing in webinar consultant?
I think I'll die with that on my tombstone. Yeah, so obviously, if you can just Google webinar consultant, if you want to get good at creating a presentation that converts, becoming a better presenter, selling one to many, just Google webinar consultant. You'll find my website, johnschumacher.com. You can reach out to me there. There's a ton of free resources there as well. You can also find me on, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube now. I got some YouTube stuff going on, all those kind of things. So you can just search my name, which is John Jon. Everybody spells my name wrong. I should probably have a better system, but Jon and then Schumacher, Schumacher, like the race car driver.
Sweet.
Um, put that in there. So yeah,
All right,
cool.
brother.
Appreciate it, Chris. How about
Heck
you,
yeah,
man?
man.
Where can people find you? Because this will be on
Yeah,
my channel too. So yeah, Chris is awesome. By the way, I know I talked a lot, but he's crushing it right now in the coaching world, Instagram, lead gen. He's awesome.
yeah, I appreciate
So,
it, man.
what
I
about you,
appreciate it.
Chris?
Yeah, so you can find me at on Instagram or YouTube at Wave Formation, so WAV. On Instagram, it's underscore formation, FORMATION. But basically, what I help with is I help a lot of musicians who teach other people, and I show them how to, instead of trading their time for money with hourly lessons, I show them how to create a high ticket, more automated package, and then I show them how to do marketing to attract people that are willing to pay, and then I show them how to do high ticket sales. But I'm starting to branch out towards just like experts and people who are really good at what they do and showing them how to build online education businesses. But I have a YouTube channel as well. You can find me there, Wave Formation. Actually, it's also I created a new channel and it's Chris Toe Vanto, so it's VANTO or Wave Formation on Instagram. But yeah, that's
Cool.
where you can find me, man. It's been
Yeah,
super amazing
and,
chatting with you, dude.
and Chris is awesome too. I mean, he's you got a really dialed in coaching process through Instagram. Get some paid ads running. You got some setters. You got a closer who hopefully is working well for you now. I'm sure he's losing you money a little bit, but hopefully not too much right now because you could be doing those calls. That's a tough one to let go. I know sales, but yeah, you're doing awesome. So yeah, check him out. See how he does it on Instagram. This guy's the master. So all right, cool,
Thank you,
Chris.
man.
Thank you. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to everyone listening soon.